At 14 ounces, Piper was the smallest surviving infant born at St. Mary's Hospital in Rochester, Minnesota. Born at just 25 weeks gestation, Piper was also small for her gestational age. Born even a few days sooner, she would have been considered too premature to try to save, but Piper was a fighter from the beginning. She spent her first 7 months at St. Mary's Hospital and Children's Hospital in Minneapolis, where she had surgery to improve her vision. In January 2008, Piper came to Sioux Falls to be closer to her family in eastern Minnesota. She was hospitalized at Avera McKinnon under the care of pediatric pulmonologist Dr. Wilfredo Valoira.
Due to her severe prematurity and small for gestational age, she developed multiple medical problems. After birth, she developed severe respiratory distress syndrome, which led to the development of bronchopulmonary dysplasia, chronic lung disease, and chronic respiratory failure, which required tracheostomy tube placement and mechanical ventilatory support to improve her oxygenation and to decrease her work of breathing. She also has poor feeding and has severe gastroesophageal reflux disease, so she was being fed by a G-tube. She also had retinopathy of prematurity, which caused her to have poor vision. I was consulted by her primary care physician, Dr. Hoyme, to help evaluate and manage Piper's medical and respiratory condition.
After about a month at Avera McKinnon, Piper came to Children's Care to begin weaning off her ventilator and receive intensive rehab therapies. The goal was to help her become as independent as possible.
Piper has multiple medical problems, and her respiratory condition is very labile. Piper needs skilled nurses and competent medical staff, and she needs a constant monitoring and optimal care. And CCHS has those wonderful, competent nursing staff and medical staff. That's why we transferred her to CCHS.
Pediatric ophthalmologist Dr. Jeff Tufte of Sanford Health treated Piper for her vision challenges.
The vision issues related to the prematurity are related to the back of the eye called the retina. So when a child is born early, the retina has not had a chance to develop like it would inside of her mother. So now the retinal blood vessels and the retina have to develop in the nursery or at home. And so her blood vessels had failed to develop and thus required surgery in order to prevent the development of abnormal blood vessels in its place. And those abnormal blood vessels could grow and lead to blindness if not taken care of.
A life-changing event came for Piper when a teenager, Caitlin Blomker, came to Children's Care as a volunteer.
Piper was the first little one I was introduced to, so she was the one I got to work with and kind of spent my first hours with her and got to be acclimated to the environment and learn about the other kids, but she just stuck in my mind.
I'll never forget the first day she went over, she called me and said, "Mom," she said, "I have met the most incredible little girl." And she said, "You have to come and meet her." And I kind of thought to myself, oh gosh, I don't do very well in those places because of the kids and seeing that. It's very emotional for me. But Caitlin kept begging and begging and begging, and so finally I went over with her one day, and I remember walking onto the unit, excuse me, and Piper was sitting in her little cart, and she was hooked up to all these tubes and oxygen and ventilator and just kind of lethargic, not real responsive, and she was I believe she was about 18 months old at that time. And I just stood there and I just remember the tears running down my face because I thought, this poor little girl, I just thought to myself, what kind of a future, is she going to have? But yet something inside of me kept saying, this little girl's going to be a part of your life. But I didn't quite know how or why or anything. And so that visit led to me going over a couple times a week and spending time with her. And then that turned into about 4 or 5 times a week. And then we got Doug involved with coming over.
It was daily.
And then it was on a daily basis. We just bonded with this little girl and just wanted to really be a part of her life and try to help her in any way that we could.
The Blomkers, as well as the children's care staff, became a part of Piper's life.
You know, I can't say enough about children's care. I remember going over and seeing her on a daily basis and the caring that the nurses and the staff have for those kids. I mean, the nurses on the unit were almost like a second family. I mean, the care that we saw that she was given, I mean, you truly knew that they were invested in her care and really cared about, you know, what was best for her. The doctors that come in and look after the kids, they are still her regular doctors now. And we've had such a good rapport with them, but I really don't know where she would have ended up had she not be able to come to children's care.
Piper's mother, who was ill and unable to care for her, eventually asked if Kathy and Doug Blomker would take Piper in as their own. They readily agreed and took 2.5-year-old Piper home on December 22, 2009.
That was
It's pretty special. It was pretty special to have her in the house. It was the first time she'd had a Christmas in a home. And, you know, it was for her to see the trees and everything else. I think she was not a little overwhelmed, but it certainly was an eye-opener for her to experience that.
and all the lights. She, you know, with her sight, with her retinopathy, lights were very attractive to her. So I remember Christmas Eve, we took her to church service, and all she wanted to do was just stare at the ceiling and look at the lights and the organ music. Piper loves music, and so that was just, I mean, you could just see the excitement on her face that these were things that she had never experienced before.
I think the Blomker family provided her a very nurturing, loving, and stimulating environment, which is very important in physical, emotional, mental, and brain development. More importantly, the family provided her a sense of belongingness.
Her care at Children's Care, I think she's really blossomed with all the help that she's been receiving. We see her about every 4 to 6 months, so it's fun to see how she's progressed with learning, getting around. Her personality and her development, I think, has been amazing to watch since we first started seeing her in 2009.
Piper not only weaned from the ventilator, she also weaned from tube feeding and now eats regular food, thanks to intensive feeding therapy with speech-language pathologists at Children's Care. Therapist Melissa Carrier-Damon says Piper needed to learn to chew and swallow, and her visual deficits made it difficult for her to trust what foods were being put into her mouth.
When we first met Piper, even getting her to take liquid was a challenge. And getting her to eat baby food was a challenge. We could sit there and spend 45 minutes with her and she would maybe take 3 bites. And I just thought, oh my gosh, is this girl ever going to be able to, to eat normally? But Melissa has worked and worked and worked with her. And now in the last 6 months, she has gone off of all baby food, and she's eating strictly regular table food.
Piper also receives occupational therapy at Children's Care with therapist Robin Goodell, where her goals are getting dressed by herself, tolerating hair washing and brushing, and learning to ride a bike, a challenge with her vision issues. But with encouragement, Piper's spirit prevails, and she's becoming more independent all the time. Meanwhile, the Blomker family's connection to Children's Care continues to grow. Kathy now works for the Children's Care Foundation, and Caitlin is working in the residential area. With the odds that she's overcome, Kathy and Doug feel that Piper is here for a reason, and the joy she's brought to their lives continues to unfold every day with this amazing child. Other than vision problems, doctors feel she will continue to catch up to her peers developmentally. Piper's future is bright, thanks to her fighting spirit, a loving family, and excellent care along the way, including the help of Children's Care Hospital and School.
I think that Children's Care Hospital and School provided excellent care to Piper. They provided her with excellent nurses, competent medical staff, wonderful facility, nurturing and stimulating environment. And I think we are very fortunate to have CCHS or Children's Care Hospital in our community.
For in my world, in my dreams, I am not so different, I'm just me. I'm just me.
Unlocking potential, improving lives. Children's Care Hospital and School.